all for staying. I know we're running late, so I will try to be as brief as possible, but still not talking too fast. First of all, before I start, I want to make two notes. One, that I'm not an engineer, I'm an analyst. I'm basically number crunching. So it's not going to be a very technical presentation. It's going to be about what the sales forecast is looking like, what is driving ADAS and vision applications, and a little bit about the supplier landscape. Secondly, I'm working on the report where from these numbers are going to come from. So the numbers that I'm showing are preliminary at this stage, and the report is going to be published, the ADAS report is going to be published in mid-November, and the top-level numbers in the ADAS report is going to be used in the camera modules report, the automotive camera modules report, which is going to be published in January. So, the numbers are a good indication, but don't take them, they might slightly change if you're interested in the report further on. So the agenda for my presentation is I'm going to very, very briefly just introduce from where I'm coming from and sort of the companies that I work from to give you an understanding, sort of credibility to my numbers, so to speak. And then I will introduce you to advanced driver assistance systems, just to give you a brief overview what systems we see and sort of the motivation for ADAS at the moment. And then we're going on to look at video intelligence in specifics, then what applications are using video intelligence, and then forecasts. And then a few slides about suppliers and how the supplies landscape is looking at the moment. And then safety regulations and legislation, which is one of the biggest driving force within ADAS at the moment. And then a quick slide about future trends, opportunities and barriers, and then of course any questions in the end. So I was working for a company called IMS Research, but we were acquired by IHS in March. But just to give you a brief overview where IMS was all about, we were founded in the late 1980s, and we were focused on electronics, business intelligence and forecasts and consultancies. And we were recognized within the industry to give really in-depth forecasts and very detailed reports. And in terms of the automotive markets, we've been researching that area since '98. And my team we were five analysts based in the UK with one analyst in China. But now, together with IHS, and I'm sure people must have heard about IHS, it's a very big global company who's sort of focusing on forecasts and consultancies in a lot of different verticals. And they're headquartered in Colorado and employs more than 5,000, well actually it's about 6,000 employees at this moment in time. So we will join the automotive team and build a team that is going to look at automotive technology solutions is the name of the team. So we were going to look at systems within the automotive, and then we will work together with IHS automotive team, which is mainly looking at the forecast in terms of sales and production of vehicles. And we will address all the areas that you see to the left, and I will be working obviously in the ADAS and the sensors team. And now we will be 14 analysts, and then looking at these areas in specific, and then being supported by the IHS automotive team as well. So looking at ADAS in specific, this chart is just showing you sort of what potentials we see in vehicles. Obviously at the moment, ADAS is not in a whole lot of vehicles, but the potential is potentially in 2012, 80 million worldwide produced vehicles. Obviously, we don't expect too many vehicles in certain parts of the world to have ADAS, but if we just look at Europe and North America, we still see about 30 million vehicles being projected to be produced this year. So it's a very big market, especially considering that one vehicle won't necessarily just have one camera. We can see several cameras in one vehicle. So it's 30+ million potentials you can see here. So just briefly going into the motivation for ADAS. Obviously, the main objective for ADAS is to save life. But then we have the money aspects as well. And I found some numbers of estimated cost for different accidents in the UK specifically. And you can see here for a fatal accident, the all associated cost of a fatal accident is £1.8 million, and a serious 200,000, and a minor accident 21,000. So annually that amounts to £18 billion in the UK, and that was taken from 2010. And I think yesterday we heard from Gabby, you had some figures from the US, that was 164 billion annually. So we're talking about a huge amount of money here that accidents are costing society, which obviously we can look into reduce. Also in terms of money, for the OEMs, there is still a large profit margin to be gained within ADAS, because up until now, ADAS has mainly been put in as an option in quite high-end vehicles, charging a very, very high price for these systems. So there's a large profit margin for OEMs potentially, and then also in terms of safety ratings, having a particular ADAS system can boost your safety rating, which has a lot of is high marketing value for OEMs, of course. If we're looking at research and data being published in terms of actual benefits and seeing reduction in traffic accidents and also consumer consumer awareness and acceptance, there isn't a whole lot of data being published yet, and that is partly because ADAS is not that old. We've seen it, some of the systems we've seen for over a decade in vehicles, others maybe 5 to 6 years. That could potentially be enough time, but the problem we're seeing is that that I mentioned just previously is that a lot of these systems are high option for drivers to purchase. So the pool of data or vehicles to pull data from is not huge. But we've seen some data being released earlier this year from IIHS, the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, and they've done some analysis of insurance claims in America, looking at forward collision mitigation and forward collision where they have braking as well, and lane departure warning in specific. And for forward collision warning with braking, they've seen a 10% reduction in claims for those vehicles or for those drivers having a vehicle fitted with forward collision warnings. And then for lane departure warning, which is according to themselves one of the systems that has the highest potential to reduce accidents, actually increased the level of claims. They're not really sure why, but one reason might be backed on a survey they did in 2009 of Volvo owners and Infiniti owners, which is two of the vehicles that have these type of systems fitted, lane departure warning and forward collision warning. It turns out that a lot of the customers weren't aware that they had lane departure warning, because you have to manually switch it on. And those who were aware of it, they got really annoyed about the warnings and because the false warnings and were apparently quite high. So a lot of people who were aware switched it off or ignored the warning, and then that might be a reason why actually these type of these vehicles that have lane departure warning actually increased the claim rate. It's not official conclusion, it's a theory why these increased. And at this stage of ADAS, one of the most important things is to raise consumer awareness. There are a lot of independent organizations that are working to sort of encourage and motivate the adoption of ADAS. And it's, for example, Euro NCAP and NCAP, CATCHAM and the IIHS. So what they can do is perhaps, obviously, attach safety ratings to ADAS, but also perhaps lower the premiums for insurances for vehicles that have ADAS, for example. And that is some specific things that would raise consumer awareness for ADAS. My next chart is that you can see the ADAS systems, the ADAS applications that are out at the moment. They might be called different things depending on the OEMs. So for example, I've, for some weird reason, decided to call surround view systems multi-view systems. Actually, it's probably more known as surround view system or bird's eye view or 360-degree systems. Collision mitigation, for example, that would include autonomous braking. Lane departure warning, there are different version of that, lane keep assist, for example, as well. But the most important things this chart is showing is obviously what type of sensors you can use for the different ADAS systems, ADAS, and as you can see, camera is being used for most of these applications. Some of these applications you can see that you can use radar or LiDAR is also being used for the same application. In some instances, one or another are deemed as better choice for the application. But as camera technology are getting better, the potential for just using cameras are being raised. Also, of course, we have sensor fusions. You could potentially, or I mean, that is already being used, both radar and a camera. And then depending on the OEM, you would use one or another as the primary sensor. So here is a sort of a overview of where you can find these different camera-specific applications. And the most important ones are these ones. And these applications would be in the camera fitted in the rear view mirror. And these are the ones that I believe have the biggest potential for embedded vision. Or they have embedded vision at the moment. These are also the most expensive applications and where we perhaps not seeing too many, the penetration rate is not high at the moment. The other potential which is really large, is for park assistant surround view cameras. And as ComniView demonstrated, you can actually do object detection for this type of systems as well. And the reason why this is having a really huge potential is obviously park assist is a very popular system already, and people know what it's all about. And then in America, we're seeing this proposal for legislation of having a rear view camera in all vehicles. It's not 100% decided what the technical specification is actually going to be, but assuming that we're seeing a camera in every vehicle in a few years' time, of course the OEMs are going to want to make a difference with their own vehicle and stand out, and then object detection is a thing that is relatively easy to make a difference from every other vehicles. The other applications can also use, driver monitoring, for example, is a great example. If it's using a camera, it uses a lot of intelligence to drive that application. Driver monitoring, though, is not very common, and there is a very competitive rival solution to it, where you don't use any sensors. You basically are using inputs from a lot of other sensors in the vehicle, and then you put together a profile of those data that if the vehicle is speeding, driving erratically or whatever from the steering input, then you would get an alert that maybe you're drowsy as well. And that is in sort of theory, an option that doesn't cost the OEM anything, except for some algorithms that might be fairly easy to put together because the data is already there. It's just a way of constructing it. So driver monitoring, although for embedded vision is a great application, is not having a practical, it's not as practical perhaps and useful in reality for camera. Night vision and blind spot detection. Night vision is a very, very costly option at the moment, and it's not very common either. And blind spot detection, you would use some embedded vision, but most part of the systems out now using radar. And the one supplier that's actually using, or the one OEM that's actually using a camera solution has discontinued that for the next vehicle model. So I don't think we're going to see that on the market in the future. So I have some forecasts here up to 2015, and then forward units would refer to those applications in the left top hand corner I was talking about, with the camera where you can find in the rear view mirror. And then rear view units, you can see, is obviously for parking assist. And as you can see, at the moment the numbers are very, very low. 2012 we just about reaching about 5 million units. And even though it's growing quite rapidly, we're not sort of expecting to see over 10 million units in the next few years. Whereas the rear view units, you can see a huge increase, and obviously that is largely due to the anticipated legislation in America. And by the way, these are worldwide figures, but I think that was clear anyway. I think the most interesting thing is to look at this chart. So even though, the light blue line is obviously for rear view cameras. So the interesting thing here is obviously that you can see, even though that for rear view cameras the volume are much, much larger, that in terms of revenue, they are quite similar. And that is because, I think it was mentioned by actually Cognitive yesterday, that a rear view module sort of selling price to the OEM is averaging about $30 at the moment, whereas a forward camera is averaging about $100. And then when I'm talking about a camera, I'm talking about the lens, the image sensor, processors, housing, not the cabling, but the whole little module. The forward camera, I don't see the price declining very quickly in the next few years, because we're seeing more applications being added. Like one camera can support one application, for example, lane departure, as I said. However, we're seeing an increase in application that each camera is supporting. Maybe 2 years ago, over, I think, 70% of cameras only supported one application, whereas just a few years now down the line, I think don't quote me on this, but it's less, sort of more 50% or less that just have one application. So we're seeing cameras supporting more and more applications, and obviously then you need more processing powers and more advanced algorithms. So the camera price is sort of more or less going to be static for the next few years because you're actually adding contact to the camera. So obviously rear view cameras, they're huge volumes, but the low price. And forward units, if you can get into that market, the profit margins is probably bigger, but we're not seeing huge volumes at the moment. So looking a little bit on the supply chain, just to illustrate sort of what type of suppliers we're seeing for different type of systems. So the first one is park reverse assist. So where it says not applicable, it means that, so let's say the vehicle manufacturers Toyota, they would get the camera from Panasonic. There isn't a system as such, so no Bosch or no Continental or whatever would actually buy a camera from the supplier and then add algorithms to it, because there isn't that much processing and algorithm to add to simple rear view cameras. It's just feeding the picture. So there is only really two suppliers in that chain. Whereas for applications that are a little bit more complicated, there are different type of solutions. Where you can say Mobileye, for example, they can either sell just the processor, and then the tier one, the system suppliers, could sort of add more algorithm on their side to the processor to sort of enhance certain features or develop certain features. Whereas Gentex, for example, has just come out with a system that is showing lane departure warning, high beam control, and some sort of, is really lane keep assist, but they call it driver alert. But they have just done it that they are using Mobileye's processor and just bought the whole kit from Mobileye, not adding anything to themselves, just to have a product out on the market to compete with other suppliers of having several applications in one cameras. Gentex has a very cost-effective, a very popular solution for high beam control. So that's when the high beam is automatically dipping and what do you call it? Going on and off, depending on meeting traffic. But obviously, if that camera is just supporting with that little image sensor they have, is just supporting that simple application. And then the competition is obviously having a camera doing high beam control and different, lane departure warning as well. So in order to compete, they have sort of bought a whole kit solution from Mobileye. And then Autoliv is the same here. They have sort of bought the processors from outside, but then added their own algorithms to the system. So it's just to illustrate how different system suppliers are going about to source the products. The supplier landscape. So I've just picked out a few things that is happening at the moment within this market. So the significant suppliers within system suppliers within the market would be the Continental, the Bosch, the Magna, TRW, Leo, etc. But what we're seeing, which I sort of briefly alluded to with the Gentex, is we're seeing sort of more perhaps high-end solution and low-end solutions for ADAS. Previously, we only seen the high-end solutions going into high-end cars. Now we see perhaps a little bit more cost-effective or low-end solutions going into more mass volume vehicles. So that's a new development within the market. And then new products for suppliers. So Bosch, for example, has a rear view camera. They've been staying away from that market for a very, very long time. Probably is quite a competitive market, but I think because of the rear view legislation in North America, they decided to enter that market. So they basically have now have one. They're sort of covering the whole automotive product portfolio now, because rear view camera was something they were missing previously. And then, like I said, Gentex has come up with a product that is actually supporting few functions, where they only were doing the rear view camera in the rear view before and the high beam control. And then new supplies that is making a big impact on the market is ImageNext from Korea, and they are having a camera and the whole solutions actually in the supply chain that they are promoting, and we will see very shortly in vehicles both in Korea and in Europe and North America. So a little bit about safety ratings and legislations. So Euro NCAP and NCAP is having a huge impact on the adoption rate for ADAS. Basically because a lot of OEMs, in terms of marketing value for them, 5-star rating is very important and is a really good marketing tool for OEMs. So the new next big thing, which is going to change a lot for ADAS application, is that Euro NCAP has decided that, well, they have come out with new test and rating schemes for 2014, so model year 2015, I think is going to be in practice, is going to see AEB being required to earn 5 stars. And this is, previously it's been that they've been dividing the weighing of the rating sort of to passive and active safety. But now, so if you were a little bit weak on the active safety side, you can sort of pump up your vehicle with a lot of passive safety systems and then sort of earn 5 stars anyway. But this, with a new system, the rating scheme they've designed, you won't be able to do that. Well, it would be very, very difficult to do that. Also, it won't be just that your vehicle will be sort of, the vehicle has to offer this AEB as an option or being fitted as standard. There has to be a certain percentage of the vehicles being fitted with this application as standard. So obviously, let's say it's 20%, for argument's sake. It's really difficult for vehicle manufacturers to say, let's put it on trim X, because they won't know that trim X is going to sell 20%. So this is a way from your NCAP to sort of force vehicle manufacturers to just make AEB standard on all trims for the whole vehicle. So it's really interesting, and I'm speaking to OEMs at the moment, to see how they're going to react, because we're seeing vehicle manufacturers, for example, Renault and Peugeot in Europe, that are using the 5-star rating heavily in their advertising campaigns and as a tool to sell their vehicles. They traditionally don't have this type of applications in the vehicles. So are we going to see, a complex camera in a Peugeot 208? Perhaps Peugeot 208 doesn't mean anything for you, but I mean they are small, very mass volume, sort of cheaper cars. So is a question whether the OEMs are going to decide: are we going to invest a lot of money in these type of technology to still be able to say that we are 5 stars, or are they going to say like, okay, we are happy with 4 stars, we can't afford to invest in this type of technology. So that's a big uncertainty within the industry at the moment. On the other hand, traditionally, as I was saying, a lot of these systems have been, especially forward collision and ACC, adaptive cruise control, have been using radars, and radars are quite expensive, and then perhaps being supplemented by a camera. Whereas, because traditionally vehicle manufacturers have thought that a camera, although they sort of in theory perhaps can do the same thing as a radar, are less reliable than a radar. But with this new development, some of them might say like, look, we put in this camera, it can do what a radar can do, perhaps not as well, but it will earn us 5 stars. So there is where we can see a huge potential for cameras, where it's previously been competing with radar, which is superior in terms of perhaps performance. For the US, we also have not a requirement, recommendations to add forward collision and lane departure warning. It's not the same as being standard, being sort of having to be offered as standard. It's more like being offered in general. So if the vehicle has this as an option, you earn sort of I think it's some, not exactly 5 stars, but you earn some sort of plus points, I think, more or less. But it has had some effect, as you can see. So the vehicles actually offering the system at all has risen from 45 to 68 vehicle models. So it's an improvement. It doesn't mean that people are actually buying the systems, but at least it's out there being available. And then, as I mentioned previously, the real new legislations, the ruling has been delayed 31st of December this year, and it's already been delayed several times. It's supposed to be in full swing February 2015, but obviously with these delays, it's highly unlikely that any vehicle manufacturer is going to be able to put in cameras in all the vehicles by 2015. So I guess it's going to be delayed by probably 2 years or so, one and a half to 2 years. On the other hand, a lot of vehicle manufacturers have obviously anticipated this. I mean, this has been an ongoing discussions for several years. So a lot of vehicle manufacturers has put in rear view cameras before the decision anyway. So we're seeing a growth for this without having a decision. So my last slide is a little bit about trends and opportunities, and hopefully I have sort of conveyed this anyway, that first of all, the automotive market is a huge market, 80 million cars potential, or at least 30 million vehicles as a first time point. We are seeing increased availability, like Jeff was saying. We're seeing the ADAS system going down to more mass volume vehicles. And we're seeing a growing need and focus for safety technologies. And then there is an increased consumer awareness. However, unfortunately, that is also one of the barriers. People might have heard about lane departure warning, but if you actually quiz them what they would do, they might not be really sure what they do. And the most important thing is that they probably don't understand the benefit, because you have to actually have had a vehicle and driven the vehicle for quite some time to actually understand the benefit it can give you. And even for stretching to forward collision warning, you might even have to have been in a near accident to really, like with an airbag, you have to have come very close to something dangerous to understand how good these systems could be. And then well, it's too late then if you don't have it. But the consumer awareness is that more people have heard of them, but maybe don't understand the benefit it can give you. So unless the option is very, very reasonably priced, consumers are not going to go out and buy the system with $2,000 or something like that, which, for example, the ACC is generally priced at the moment very high. So, yeah, the consumer awareness is one of the most important things, unless we see, of course, legislation and regulation on and mandating to have these type of systems on all cars. One of the other barriers is the automotive standards, and that is really important. I'm sure perhaps Cognitive you did sort of illustrate that a little bit yesterday, that just because you might have a solution in a consumer product, the difference in the automotive world is because it's going to be, especially because it's going to be used for safety. It has to go through so many tests and criteria from the OEM sides in comparison to consumer goods. So that's really costly in terms of R&D. But also, the lifespan of a vehicle is much longer than for a mobile phone, for example. It's probably, a mobile phone, I don't know how long you expect your mobile phone to last, but my last mobile phone I had for 6 years, and then it died. And then I got a new one last year, and it died by itself in a year. So that's not very long lifespan, and most people would have, changed it before that year anyway, as soon as a new model or something more interesting coming out. Whereas a car, you don't go out and change your car every 8 months or 12 months or even every 3 years. Even if you do, it has to last after the first owner. It might have to last for 10-15 years. And the automotive standard usually dictates that parts have to last for 10 years. So that's a big barrier in terms of, thinking you have a good solution in one type of goods, and then trying to go into the automotive world is very difficult. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Helena?
And just one quick question. Have you heard anything about phased array radar?
Phased
in the
array.
automotive market?
No.
Okay, so just, phased
But actually, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what phased array radar is.
Phased array radar is essentially a depth sensor. It's basically a 3D sensor.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's important to us is the output of the 3D sensor. Of course, even though it's not a camera, it is in fact 3D data that we can process. So we're using computer vision algorithms.
Okay. So, no, I haven't. But I haven't looked into it either, to be honest with you. But then, you probably know better than me then. I mean, the radar we're seeing on the market now, used for adaptive cruise control, for example, is much more expensive than a camera. So I don't know how expensive a 3D radar might be, but I don't think it would compete with a camera in the automotive space.
Any comments or rumors you might have heard about anything you might have heard about these ADAS features actually being deployed through smartphones, things like that?
No, not really. Unfortunately, I don't look at really the aftermarket at all, mainly because it's huge and it's like a jungle out there, and also because some of the products you can find on the aftermarket, they are just more or less modified consumer goods, because there isn't that automotive standard I was talking about present for aftermarket. So they don't really compete with the OEM fitted stuff. So I just don't just haven't looked at it because it's not in the same league and it's too big market to look at.
Do I need that or? I mean, it's similar, not the same story, but it's something similar is happening, right? For infotainment. There's the integrated navigation stuff going on, and there's the handheld, and still your smartphone is pretty much match that capability, right?
I mean, my opinion sort of in general is that for those people that are inclined to download lots of apps on their phones, they wouldn't, because obviously if you have a lane departure warning systems on your smartphone, it would have to be on all the time when you're driving, otherwise it's not working. And it would have to take priority from all the other things that the smartphone can do. So my opinion is a little bit like, would people be happy to just ignore the calls and emails and messages and other things that might come into the phone and just keep it in the windscreen for a lane departure warning? I don't personally think so. But then there is other issue, how you fit it in a secure and good way in the front. So it's a little bit logistics problems as well. But my main problem is that I don't think people are happy if you just let their phone sit there in the windscreen not doing anything except for lane departure warning.
Couple more questions.
Admittedly, this is a little orthogonal to vision, but audio recognition within the car, can you make any comments on that?
Sorry?
Audio recognition, so...
you mean like HMI, like
Yes.
commanding? I personally don't look into that very much, but I can put you in touch with somebody if you want to.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so two questions. One, have you heard anything about the elimination of the side mirrors?
Yes.
Okay, that's the first question. The second one is, have you seen anything on convenience features where they're putting a camera in for gesture control of the console, which sounds goofy to me, but we've come across some inquiries around that. But and the second one is using the camera for some other convenience features, if the camera's in the car.
So the side mirrors is something that is being used in sort of more sporting racing things at the moment. So we can see it not on the market, but in practice. It's something I'm looking into to the report, but I can. First of all, I won't tell you any forecast because I want you to buy my report, of course. But I can tell you. But of course, there is, and I haven't double checked that, but I've been told that there is a legal issue with that, at least in Europe, to do that. If you have a small volume car, like, because I think the Tesla is actually going to have something like that, but that is a very small volume car, and then you can get around that legislation by saying this is a special edition, special vehicle, and so I don't anticipate to see this on the market for the mass volume vehicles anytime soon. But I will have some more information on that in my report.
Yeah, the rationale I heard for this was, and we haven't seen much more than the Tesla did. We had an inquiry from a trucking company as well, and the interesting thing from the trucking company was that they said that the side mirrors created a significant drag, and that they and the companies are now looking at ways to get rid of side mirrors because it would improve fuel efficiency by 10% and allow them to meet the new fuel efficiency standards. And they would be putting displays inside the car and eliminate the side mirrors.
Obviously, for a truck, the mirrors are much bigger. So
Yes,
I guess.
then the way out.
Yeah. So I guess for them it makes more sense. But I don't look at heavy trucks either, so I can't really comment on that much either. And in terms of gestures and things, that I think would go more under the infotainment app side of business, which I don't cover, so I don't know much about it, I'm afraid, but I haven't heard anything about it for ADAS specifically.
How
was
about
another
It
question?
was the convenience as well for not just interior but exterior. For controlling, since you have cameras, you control other things in the car, like opening the hatch and doors.
Yeah,
Have you seen anything on that?
I haven't really looked at that either, I'm afraid.
All right. We haven't either. We just get inquiries, and we have no idea whether it's going to be popular or not. And, you know, we don't really have a feel for the market size. We just hear that interest in actually trying to use it.
So you had a demo with a door latch,
Yeah.
but I'm not 100% sure. Wouldn't you be able to do that just with what you're having now, the sort of the smart keys somehow?
Well, it actually, what happens is, the way it was explained to us is you have these proximity keys now where you don't have to put the key in the car and start the car. As soon as you get close, they have these RFID emitters, and they know that you're close to the car. The rear camera turns on, and your hands are full, and you just have to basically wave your hand or your foot, and the latch opens. So if you're carrying groceries or you can't open the trunk, you can, use motion. Yeah. That was
my neighbor has a very swanky Audi, and as far as I can tell, when he goes out from his door, he just presses a button, and then he's putting in his briefcase in the trunk, and he doesn't do any movements. He just presses his key, and then the trunk is opening. So I'm not 100% sure.
No, the keys. Yeah, but that means you have a key in your hand.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to do anything after that. That's what I mean.
You don't need to wave with,
No.
with the groceries in your hand.
No.
Yeah.
You just press the
Or
key and then it's opening. He can be quite, I mean, he's by his door.
No,
it's
the
quite
key's not in your hand. Your key's sitting in your purse or your briefcase.
I don't take the keys anymore out. It's
Yeah.
always in my
Yeah,
pocket.
it's in your pocket. So how does your car open?
I don't know actually.
He just
but
walks up to the car
I
and
mean,
gets the car.
yeah.
Basically don't.
The key's not in your hand at all. Like in that case, the Audi car key is in his hand. Anyway, okay. You haven't come across this way.
Dave,
Yeah, sure. My question was around the legislature and regulation. Do you expect to see more aggressiveness in either in North America or Europe on mandating more of these? And what's your time scale when that's going to get more aggressive, or it's more of a wait and see kind of thing? Or?
Well, there are other things on sort of the list of other systems they're looking at, but in general, so I know NHTSA, for example, is looking at the connected car and having wireless, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, for example. But generally, that takes a really long time. So, for example, for the legislation of rear view cameras, that started, I think, the debate started probably in the early 2000s, but then it was mandated in 2007, and now we are in 2012. We're still not clear what's happening. So it takes a very long time. In terms of autonomous emergency braking, seeing that in America, I know we see the Volvo system, for example, which is at 30 miles per hour, so it's low speeds. But for the Euro NCAP that I was talking about, they have 3 different types of AUBs, and one of them is in high speeds, so we potentially work on autobahns and highways, and I don't think that is going to happen in America. Usually America follows Europe, but because of the different sort of litigation systems you have here, I don't see that sort of happening. But I might be wrong. I haven't really spoken to American OEMs yet about it, so I don't know what their feeling is about it. But yeah, my sort of initial feeling is that it won't happen.